this lecture where we'll be covering starting from the introduction of Japanese language. Okay, let's begin our lecture. First and foremost, I would like to talk about where does Japan sit in the whole world's map, and why I'm telling you it's because I mean we should know these aspects also when we are learning the language. So this is our country, India, and when we move to eastern side of us, at the eastern corner, the Japan island or Japan country is there. Okay, and it's this is also called the country of the rising sun. And in fact, when I first traveled to Japan in the year 2007, I believe, I wrote a note to all my friends that rising from the land of rising sun. And that time, that was not the um, age of Facebook or anything, any social media. So I had to email my friends. I still remember that. It was a very, very proud or uh, very exciting moment for me. Okay, uh, now surrounding this eastern or this Japan, actually we have South Korea, we have China, and then Philippines is on the southern side, but it's very far from here. And then if you keep moving on the west, then first China comes, then India comes, then further. And US, actually, if you see, if somebody has to travel from Japan to US, he has to cover this North Pacific Ocean completely. So they are again quite far from each other. If you say it's around, I think 12 hours flight or something like that. Okay, all over the sea. Okay, moving on. If we drill down more on the map of Japan, so Japan is basically divided into four small islands, and here are the four islands I'll be talking about. So first one is Hokkaido, where the main place is Sapporo. Okay, and this place is pretty cold. It's covered with snow a lot of the times, and again very beautiful. The second one, which is called Honshu, and it's the most advanced or most developed part of the whole country. So here you will see Tokyo, Osaka, Yokohama, Kyoto, Nara, Hiroshima, these type of cities. Now these are again very developed economies or developed cities of this whole country, and majority of the business actually happens here. Moving forward, in the south we have Shikoku, where we have two main islands, Tokushima and Kurashaki, and there comes Kyushu, where the Nagasaki and Hakata is there. So basically, four islands, and this is how the map of Japan is. So when we land in Tokyo, on the southern side we have Osaka. Then further this side, I believe we have Kyoto, or and then Hiroshima is further down. I think this area or somewhere like that, and Nagoya is in between. So Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Kyoto, then Hiroshima. This is how they this is how the flow, and all is covered by Shinkansen, the bullet train, which you are all probably aware of. Okay, so we'll start with our language course now, pretty formally. The first thing is that, like any other language, the Japanese language is also comprised of verbs, adjectives, nouns, adverbs, conjunctions, and particles, very common to English or Hindi. Okay, and and if we see the words of order, so predicate always comes at the end of a sentence. Okay, and so if we see this example below, John went home. So went home is the predicate. Okay? Went home is the predicate, and John is the subject. So that's how they are. That's how we understood, right? So went home, predicate, and John is the subject. Okay. Now the verb always comes at the end of a sentence. That's another thing to note. So let us see an sentence in English and Japanese. So in English, it's the sentence is like it will rain tomorrow. Okay, and in Japanese, the same sentence if translated into Japanese, it will be said as Ashita amega furimasu. Let me read it again. Ashita amega furimasu. Okay, we'll definitely go more into detail of what this actually is, but let us see from this perspective what does it mean. So tomorrow it will rain. That's it. So Ashita is tomorrow. Amega furimasu is it will rain. Okay. So if you see again, the predicate is at the end of the sentence. Furimas is the verb, and that is also coming at the end of the sentence. And ashta is the subject, which is coming at the beginning of the sentence. So there we covered with an example how the subject and the predicate are distributed in a sentence. Another example, I will go to the company. Watashi wa kaisha he ikimasu. I, subject, company is kaisha, to will go. So will go is again the predicate, and the sub verb is at the end of the sentence. So don't be bothered if you are not able to grasp it, but just understand this concept that predicate and comes at the end of a sentence, and the verb also comes at the end of the sentence. Now one more important thing, if you compare it with the Hindi and English. So English, if you see, it says that it will rain tomorrow. So if you what is happening is the verb and the predicate is at the beginning of the sentence, and the subject, main thing is it's coming at the end. And similar here also, I will go to the company. I will go is at the beginning of the sentence. But if we speak this, or if we have to speak these sentences in Hindi, what will we say? We'll say that kal barish hogi, correct? So, there is a similarity between Hindi and Japanese in terms of sentence formation. कल आशिता बारिश होगी आमेगा फूरिमस, ठीक है. कल मैं कंपनी जाऊंगा, ठीक है. या फिर मैं कंपनी जाऊंगा, तो वाताशी मतलब मैं, कंपनी जाऊंगा मतलब काइशा है इकीमास, कंपनी में जाऊंगा, ठीक है. Now few more important things to know, whether we, while looking at this sentence, we can say that it's a negative sentence or it's a positive sentence. That's one of the characteristics of the language. And past tense and present and future also, past or non-past, I would say, you can differentiate between these verbs. So in Hindi, if we say kal gaya tha ya kal jaunga, from here we can make out, right? So in similar to that, Japanese also we can make out whether it is a past which has happened in the past, and which is non-past. Why I'm saying non-past? Because uh, you cannot make out from the sentence whether it's present or future. Okay? And yeah, that's what we talked about here. And the next point is that nouns do not change for singularity. So singular nouns and plural nouns are same. So cat and cats are going to be same. There is no differentiation between. Moving on, what we will start with is understand that how the scripts in Japanese are distributed. So there are mainly 3 or 4 scripts actually. So one is called hiragana, another is called katakana, then comes kanji, where which is basically a Chinese characters, which we are all very well aware of also. The fourth one is Romaji, which is like Romanized writing. So English words are written using Romaji script. Um, so Hinagana Katana are phonetics presentations, and they are like A, B, C, D kind of thing. Okay, and the kanji is basically, as I mentioned, it would be more of a Chinese character, and katakana is to write actually foreign words. Okay, so how does hiragana look like? Let us see it. Okay, first of all, there are 46 basic syllables in Japanese language. In English, I believe we have 26 A to Z, and in Japanese we have 46. Okay, so how do they write A? A, ka, sa, ta. So you see, it's it's comparatively easier, okay, to understand hiragana and katakana, and then when we move to kanji, which is both has a sound and a meaning also. So if you see in this same one place, they are able to represent Yama, which is nothing but mountain, and this is kanji. So kanji is basically a space optimized way of uh, representing or writing something. Since, and probably it comes from the culture that they do not have they didn't have that much space overall, so they had no option other than to come up with these Chinese characters or these kind of pictorial representations. Um, Usage wise, both hiragana and katakana, basically kanji and kana, are used in the same sentence. So there is a mixture of kanji, hiragana, katakana, and sometimes romaji also. And katakana is basically used to write foreign names. So my name, your name, who are not Japanese, of course, would be written katakana. And hiragana used for grammar particles and positive, negative, rest of the sentence patterns. Well, you'll get to understand just now, understand the theory, and when we move forward, you'll probably go back and relate it with these basic things that I'm talking about now. Then Romaji is Romanized characters of the English. Now here we'll see an example. Uh, what we have done is we have written a sentence in Japanese, and then have tried to break it down into hiragana, katakana, and the English translation of it. So what does it say? Tanaka-san wa Mira-san to JR de Osaka he ikimasu. Okay, so this is nothing but a kanji. Okay, then san is hiragana. This is again hiragana. This is Mira is again a foreign name. It's a katakana. San again is hiragana. To hiragana. JR, okay, say if you see this is a Romaji, it's a Japan Railways, stands for Japan Railways. Okay, there is again hiragana, kanji, he, kanji, sorry, hiragana. Ikimas is again hiragana. It's a verb. Okay, so Mr. Mrs. and Miss Tanaka, we cannot make out from him whether it's a female or a male. There is a gender specific differentiation in Japanese language, and is going to Osaka by JR with Mr. Miller. Okay, so this is the first example we saw. Okay, and that brings us the end of lecture 1. We'll cover more in the next lectures. And if you have still not subscribed to my channel, please do so and put down your comments to let me know how you are liking it and what do you want me to improve on. We'll decidedly improve and come up with new methods of teaching. Thank you.